Well, I have a guest here right now, and he is with the New Civil Liberties Alliance, and he's filed a class action lawsuit, and his name is John Vecchione. John, it's a pleasure having you on the program. Good morning.
It's great to be here. Good morning.
John, you have filed a class action lawsuit over what the CDC just announced the other day, that it's going to extend the eviction moratorium through the end of June. And we labor under such coronavirus baloney here in the state of Oregon, too, even from our own governor. But I remember when the CDC made that announcement, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what power do they have to sit around there and control what you have to do with your tenants or your landlord or your mortgage bank or anything like that? Is that kind of where you're going on this particular lawsuit?
That is a large part of it. Would you think, if you had a rental property, that the CDC could stop you from accessing your own property? Now, this is not, the whole thing about it is it's not even an order, and I don't think they have this power, but it's not even an order that if you have COVID, you can't be evicted, which at least would relate the disease to something.
Sure.
It's that while COVID exists, you cannot go into state court and evict your tenants even if they haven't paid for a year. And that's what's happening. I mean, this thing, some people have not been paid since March, and these are mom and pop people. Maybe they have a little apartment for retirement or something like that, and they cannot get access to their property. And there's nothing in the statute that says CDC can do this.
I'm glad that someone at least noted this, because we have, I think, been kind of snowed under and just thinking, oh, health trumps all. If COVID exists, then you must do this. And then, no, wait a minute. Consent of the governed. What does the law actually say? And what does the law actually empower the CDC to do? I would imagine you've been looking into this.
Yes. So the law actually gives a list of things CDC can do. For instance, it can order that animals are destroyed who if they're bearing disease. They could probably quarantine people who actually have COVID, things like that, things that you would normally expect them able to do. They can order things fumigated, that sort of thing. But they do not, even on this list of items, have the ability to just stop your access to state court. And in fact, that's such a huge step. That's such a huge step that one court in Texas has held that Congress doesn't even have that power under the Commerce Clause. And so we filed a class action because the cases have gone different ways in the country. But when the plaintiff wins, when the home provider wins, and the court says you win, that doesn't apply to everybody else in the country. We're hoping that our suit will apply to everyone, and that this nonsense will stop. Because this is not, this is having huge effects on real people. And you mentioned Oregon. We have one client who has a property in Oregon, and of course you've got both the federal CDC order, and then you also have the governor's order, and it's the same sort of thing. But of course, in all these cases, your rights have been taken away without even a rational link between the disease and the step they've taken.
I noticed that in the state of Oregon, what they'll say is that, it would be so disorderly, we'd see so much more COVID spread if you had more people being evicted for non-payment of rent, and they're out there and they're piling into shelters and things like that. At least that is that's the logic that they're trying to proffer out there. And yet I would still say it doesn't matter. It's like the apartment or your relationship with the landlord still has nothing to do with that. It's like, I agree to pay you, you agree to let me stay. That's normally the way most contractual obligations work, at least. And no one's really talking about backfilling. I know there is talk about backfilling some of the landlord's losses, but even then, when the state was trying to backfill that, John, they were saying, well, you had to take less for your rent. You had to automatically cut your rent in order to be eligible to be made somewhat semi-whole by state funding, to back them up. Have you seen things like that happening too?
The government pays. The government pays. The government makes the rules, and that's why we do have a private economy, and we every state in the nation, in order to stop, you can't go self-help. You can't just toss people out, on your own power. Every law in all the 50 states allow you eviction to get your property back. And it's not like you can just do this. People think, oh, you just throw people out on the streets. First, you've got to give them notice. In almost every state, you've got to give them notice. Mm-hmm. You've got to give them a time to cure. This CDC order lets people who are making $99,000 a year not pay rent. Some of these people are making more than the people who they're stiffing on the rent. It's incredible.
I've had local landlords here, John. By the way, John Vecchione here, and he is a class action litigator here, senior litigation counsel for the nonprofit New Civil Liberties Alliance, and they filed a class action lawsuit against these shutdowns, these CDC-induced shutdowns here. I've had people here in Southern Oregon that could pay their rent. They were certainly capable of paying the rent, John, and then they said, well, the governor says we don't have to pay, we're not going to pay. And that's exactly what's been going on for many of these clients, I'll bet.
Well, it's the idea of moral hazard, right? You put this in, and in certain small cases, it might be like someone has COVID, and you don't want them out during the 2 weeks they got COVID or whatever it is.
Right.
For that tiny little microscopic group of people, you've created moral hazard because some people, whether there's an order or not, they're going to pay their rent. But then other people say, hey, this is an advantage. I'm gonna take it. And I get all the time that these folks are never going to pay because the landlords aren't going to be able to chase them around. I mean, it is a real loss, and there's a big fiction going on in the law that, when this is all over, you can always make up your losses by suing these people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's really not how the law works. The reason you have eviction is because chasing people around for huge sums, $15,000, $25,000, $30,000, is hard to get an attorney for that much, and then it's hard to chase them down forever.
So which venue have you filed this class action lawsuit in, John?
So we filed in the Northern District of Iowa, which is Cedar Rapids. And it's the name of the case is Mossman versus CDC. Asa Mossman is the lead plaintiff. That's why his name is on there. And he has an apartment house in Cedar Rapids where he hasn't received any rent for ages. For a year, I'm pretty sure. So then we have 22 other plaintiffs from all around the country, and we're filing it there. There have been cases in the Sixth Circuit. The New Civil Liberties has one there. That's like the Atlanta region.
Unfortunately, we're in the Ninth Circuit. Do you have anybody from the Ninth Circuit in this too?
We do. We do have people from California now. We have two classes. One is the class of people who are just stopped by the CDC order, but we have a backstop class, and that's for the people who are in states where the governor has made an order as well. Because what is the actual result of this? If you try to politically organize and put pressure on the governor to change anything, he says, well, you still got the CDC order. It totally takes away your ability to move for change because there's just so many obstacles in the way of you getting back into court for your rights that you've had for forever under the laws of the 50 states.
John, how can listeners either join your lawsuit or help support your lawsuit? Because I think it's very important that this win, because we have so many people that are hanging by a thread. We really do.
So you go to nclalegal.org. Mm-hmm. You can read all about the case, and we put up all our stuff there. And you can also donate at that website. As far as joining the case, the class action right now, and if the class is granted, everyone who's a landlord will benefit from it. That's why we filed a class action.
Oh, okay.
But if not, because they can just say, I'm in the class, you got to let me in if you win. That's why you have class actions.
Oh, sorry about that. You're right. I just forgot about that. Didn't realize it as I'm even asking. I'm thinking like it's not an individual lawsuit, class action lawsuit. Okay, got it. All right.
But if the class isn't granted, then go to our website and give us a call because obviously there is some states I don't have plaintiffs, but we certainly have 22, and we have organizations. We have the National Apartments Association. We have whole organizations of people who own and provide homes. So I think it's a very big class action, and I think that it should benefit everyone. And all it does is allow you to go back and give what the law of all the 50 states have provided you if there wasn't this kind of a made-up emergency, because there's not any evidence of anybody that there's some huge mass throwing everyone out on the streets. There's just no evidence of it.
I'm going to ask a question of a more conspiratorial nature here. This whole idea to balance the COVID budgets on the backs of landlords and people who have houses and who have been renting to people, and most who I think are honorable and pay their rent if they are certainly capable of. It's not that I am not sympathetic to people who have had financial problems, but there is help available for stuff like that. Do you think this goes as deep as this is that whole part of that push for a universal basic income, and we're going to have Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum type line of thinking, in which we need a reset of capitalism and you'll own nothing but you'll be happy? You think it's a little bit connected and being leveraged from the COVID people in some ways?
I think I don't doubt there's some political support in that direction, but one of the things you got to say to get this benefit is you fill out a CDC form that says that you've tried to get all governmental help. But they just sign the form. They don't actually have to get the governmental help and give it to the landlord. So it's creating a lot of, I think, false affidavits as well. But obviously there's some political support for this idea. The people who say that, though, they never want to go and pay the other people's rent, right?
No.
They're happy to have somebody's somebody who owns rental property suffer the entire loss, but they don't then go out and pay these people's rent. So it's just the whole thing is there are more people who rent than who own apartments, and I think it's just that numbers game, and that people that there's more of these people than there are of those people, and so I'm going to hurt these people and get more votes.
You're a landlord. Sucks to be you, right? Basic. You have it. They want it. We're going to give it to them. That's essentially the argument that's being made here.
And they say that they're being compassionate, but it's always easy to be compassionate when it's not you paying the hot water.
And have you noticed that I haven't seen any call or any local governments, any place or any state governments that are saying, oh, by the way, you don't have to pay your taxes while you're not being paid for your. Have you noticed that while you're not being paid for your apartments?
Yeah, and all the property taxes, all that you still have to pay. And this is one thing. I will say this sort of drives me absolutely nuts. If you have a mortgage and the bank forecloses on the property because you can't pay because you're not getting rent, the bank can evict the person. So it's the worst of all possible worlds. The only person who's hurt by this is the person who invested in the property or owned the property, and then if the bank forecloses, they get to evict.
I didn't know that. I did not realize that, John Vecchione. That is absolutely insane, but that is kind of the world we find ourselves, and I'm glad there's an attorney like yourself and the group here, which, of course, is the New Civil Liberties Alliance. I'll get all the information up there. Find out more about this lawsuit. Please help support it. It's going to take money. It needs to be won. And I thank you so much for an update on that. Thanks for having joined the show, John. Be well.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
You bet.